paradrama tales.
He blocked my driveway again. Weeks of notes, warnings, and face-to-face talks were ignored. One night, I decided enough was enough. I called a tow truck. Sometimes standing up for yourself is the only way to make someone finally listen. My neighbor is exactly the kind of guy who thinks rules apply to everyone except himself. He's a tall, confident guy, well over 6 feet, and in his mid-20s, the kind of guy who walks around like the world owes him something. From the very first time I saw him park, I realized this wasn't going to be a simple neighborly relationship. Almost every day he would park his crusty silver sedan right in front of my driveway, completely blocking it. It didn't matter that this was my home, my access point, or that I had places to be. No matter how many polite notes I left on his windshield, or how many times I said, "Hey man, seriously stop," he just brushed it off with a smirk or a lazy excuse. "I'm just here for a bit." He'd say like that was all the justification he needed. But that bit somehow stretched into hours, 3 to 5 hours every single time. It was more than an annoyance. It was disrespectful. I felt like my own driveway wasn't my own anymore. I couldn't park my car or leave when I wanted, without getting tangled up in his disregard for rules. This wasn't just about parking, it was about the principle, about respect, about being part of a community where everyone's needs matter. But to him, rules were just suggestions, and my driveway was apparently just a place for him to leave his car while he did whatever he wanted. I tried everything. I left notes, I talked to him face to face, and even warned him that if it kept happening, I would have to take further action. Each time he waved me off, acting like I was making a big deal out of nothing. But it was a big deal to me, and every blocked driveway was a little slap in the face. Living next door to someone like that is frustrating. It makes you question what it means to be a good neighbor and how much patience you can really have before you have to stand up for yourself. My neighbor wasn't just breaking parking rules, he was breaking the trust and respect that should exist between neighbors. And that's when I realized sometimes polite words aren't enough. Sometimes you have to make a decision that changes everything. Having your driveway blocked might sound like a small inconvenience to some, but when it happens repeatedly, it can take a serious toll on your daily life. For me, it wasn't just about a car sitting in front of my home. It was about the frustration of not being able to come and go freely, the feeling that my personal space was being violated, and the sense that my concerns just didn't matter. Imagine coming home after a long day only to find that you can't park where you need to. You circle the block, waste precious time, and sometimes even worry that you might miss something important because you're stuck dealing with a selfish driver. It's exhausting, and it chips away at your peace of mind. Blocked driveways also create ripple effects. I had appointments to make errands to run, and friends visiting. Each time his car was there, fully blocking the way, I had to make alternate plans or ask for favors. It's not just about me, it affects family, neighbors, and even emergency situations. What if there had been a fire or a medical emergency? Would they have been able to get through? Emotionally, the repeated blocking made me feel disrespected and powerless. This was my home, my sanctuary. Having someone disregard my right to access it felt like a personal attack. Every note I left and every conversation I had was a plea for respect that was repeatedly ignored. Living next to someone who constantly breaks the rules wears on your patience and your sense of community. It raises questions about boundaries and mutual respect. How do you maintain civility when one person continually acts like they're above everyone else? But it also forces you to evaluate your own limits. How much can you tolerate before it's no longer just a nuisance? At what point does standing up for yourself become not just necessary, but urgent? For me, the impact was clear. It was time to stop waiting for him to change and take control of the situation myself. Because your home and peace of mind shouldn't be at the mercy of someone else's arrogance. That night, the night I came home to find my driveway blocked again, was the final straw. I pulled up after a long day looking forward to the comfort of home, only to see his crusty silver sedan sitting there right across the entrance to my driveway. It wasn't just an inconvenience anymore. It felt like a challenge, a blatant disregard for me and my space. Through his window, I saw him sitting inside, casually getting ready to go out. Spritzing on cologne, adjusting his clothes, clearly planning to leave, but without any intention of moving his car anytime soon. That moment crystallized all the frustration I'd been bottling up over weeks. His repeated dismissals of my requests, the constant blocking the way he treated my driveway like it wasn't mine. I thought back to all the notes I had left on his windshield, the countless "hey man" seriously stop conversations I'd had. Nothing had worked. His excuse, "I'm just here for a bit," had lost all meaning after hours stretched into hours and days. Something inside me shifted. I realized waiting any longer wasn't just unfair, it was enabling him. This was my home, my driveway, my right. And if he wouldn't respect that, I had to take action. So, without hesitation, I called a tow truck. No more warnings, no more notes. I decided this was the night I reclaimed my space, my peace, and my dignity. About 45 minutes later, I was sitting on my porch enjoying a beer when a woman clearly dressed for a date walked up the sidewalk. She knocked on his door, and he came out smiling until he saw his car was gone. His smile dropped. Confusion and panic took over his face as he looked around, clearly realizing he'd been caught off guard. The woman looked baffled. I spoke up calmly. "If you're looking for your car, it got towed. You were blocking my driveway. Again." He tried to argue, but she just shook her head and said, "Wow, that's trash," then walked off. That night changed everything. I haven't seen him block my driveway since, and his confidence took a major hit. No more girls coming over, no more casual arrogance. Sometimes standing up for yourself is exactly what it takes to be heard. That night, after seeing my neighbor once again blocking my driveway, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands. Months of polite warnings, notes, and face-to-face talks had been ignored. Every excuse he gave, "I'm just here for a bit," had stretched into hours of blocked access, disrespecting my space and my right to come and go freely. My patience had run out. Calling a tow truck felt like a big step, but it was one I needed to take not just for convenience, but for my peace of mind. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming control over my own property. I knew that legally a car blocking a driveway can be towed, and I was prepared to follow through. Making that call was empowering. It was my way of saying, enough is enough. No more notes left on windshields that would be ignored. No more polite conversations brushed aside. It was time to enforce the rules that exist to protect everyone's rights, including mine. Waiting for the tow truck to arrive, I felt a mix of nervousness and relief. Part of me hoped he'd finally get the message. Another part wondered how he'd react. But the sense of taking a stand was already comforting. When the tow truck arrived and took his car away, I was sitting on my porch with a beer, feeling like I'd regained a small piece of peace. The street felt lighter, my driveway accessible again. It was a simple act with big consequences. That night, the neighbor's arrogance met real consequences. His confidence faltered when he saw his car was gone, especially when a woman, clearly his date, arrived confused and disappointed. Watching that moment, I realized that sometimes standing up for yourself requires bold action, not just words. Calling the tow truck wasn't just about a car. It was about respect boundaries and knowing when to stop being patient and start being assertive. And that night, I chose to be heard loud and clear. About 45 minutes after the tow truck took his car away, I was sitting on my porch, finally enjoying some peace. That's when a woman walked up the sidewalk, dressed up clearly ready for a date. She knocked on his door, and he came out smiling, confident and relaxed. But that smile faded fast the moment he spotted the empty driveway where his car had been. His face changed from casual to shock as he looked around, panic setting in. He began searching nearby as if someone had stolen his car. The confusion was almost comical, but it was clear he had no idea his car had been towed because he'd been blocking my driveway again. The woman, probably his date, looked utterly baffled. I spoke up calmly from my porch. "If you're looking for your car, it got towed. You were blocking my driveway. Again." He tried to argue, probably hoping to avoid blame, but the woman didn't buy it. She just shook her head and said, "Wait, you parked in front of his driveway." Then with clear disappointment, she said, "Wow, that's trash," and walked off, leaving him standing there speechless and embarrassed. That moment was powerful, not just for him, but for me. His confidence, that arrogance that made him think he could ignore everyone's requests, took a serious hit. It was a public reminder that actions have consequences, and disrespecting others comes at a cost. Since that night, I haven't seen him block my driveway again, nor have I noticed him bringing dates over. It's as if the tow truck and the unexpected confrontation with his date taught him a lesson he couldn't ignore. Sometimes people only understand consequences when the discomfort is undeniable and public. That night was a turning point, not just for my peace of mind, but for the respect I deserved as a neighbor. It was proof that standing up for yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable or confrontational, can bring about real change. And sometimes that change is exactly what's needed to restore balance and respect. After that night, everything changed for my neighbor. His usual swagger, the way he carried himself like he was untouchable, vanished almost overnight. Before, he seemed to believe the rules didn't apply to him, especially when it came to parking. But once his car was towed and his date walked away shaking her head, the reality hit him hard. His confidence was shattered. I noticed it in the small things. He stopped parking in front of my driveway, which was the relief I had hoped for. But more than that, he stopped bringing girls home. The casual bravado that once defined him gave way to a quieter, more cautious demeanor. It was like the walls he had built around his ego crumbled, revealing a man suddenly aware of his own vulnerability. This fall from grace was a reminder of how quickly arrogance can be dismantled by simple consequences. It showed me that sometimes when people think they're above the rules, it's because they've never truly been held accountable. When that accountability arrives, it can be humbling, sometimes painfully so. I also realized that his behavior wasn't just about parking. It was a window into a mindset that put his desires above everyone else's, that assumed privilege without responsibility. Watching him change even in small ways made me hopeful that respect can be learned. The experience taught me a valuable lesson about boundaries and self-respect. It reinforced that standing up for yourself isn't just about protecting your property, it's about demanding dignity. And sometimes it takes a public fall for someone to understand that. While I didn't wish for him to lose his confidence, I did want him to see that respect is earned, not taken for granted. His fall from grace was a necessary reset, a chance to grow and hopefully become a better neighbor in person. And as for me, reclaiming my driveway and my peace was a victory. It reminded me that sometimes the hardest battles are about standing firm in your rights, and that strength can bring about real change. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to think that rules are meant for everyone else, but never for them? My neighbor was a perfect example of this mindset. At first I thought it was just arrogance or laziness, but the more I observed, the more I realized there's often a deeper reason why people behave this way. Some people grow up in environments where boundaries are ignored or easily broken. They might have learned early on that they can get what they want by pushing limits or ignoring others. For my neighbor, it seemed like a sense of entitlement had taken root. He believed that because he was confident, tall, and maybe even charming, the rules simply didn't apply to him. This sense of entitlement can also stem from a lack of empathy. When you can't put yourself in someone else's shoes, when you fail to understand how your actions impact others, it's easy to justify selfish behavior. Blocking a driveway might seem trivial to one person, but for the homeowner, it's an invasion of space, a disruption of daily life. Psychologically, this can also be tied to a need for control. Breaking rules can give a person a fleeting sense of power or superiority, especially if they feel overlooked or powerless in other areas of life. For some, ignoring norms is a way to assert their identity or independence, even if it comes at the expense of community harmony. But here's the thing, living in a society means respecting shared spaces and common courtesies. Rules aren't there to make life harder. They're there to protect fairness and safety. When someone ignores them, it disrupts the balance and breeds resentment. Understanding why people break rules doesn't mean excusing their behavior. It means recognizing that sometimes it's about deeper issues, whether it's upbringing, personality, or life struggles. But at the end of the day, respect is a choice. It's a responsibility each of us holds toward our neighbors and community. My experience taught me that while some people may think rules don't apply to them, standing firm in your boundaries can remind them otherwise. Sometimes it's the consequences and accountability that teach respect better than any conversation ever could. Knowing when to speak up and when to take action is a delicate balance, one I had to learn the hard way with my neighbor. At first, I tried the gentle approach, leaving notes, having calm conversations, asking politely. I believed that clear communication and patience would be enough. But when those efforts were ignored, I realized that sometimes words aren't enough. Standing up for your rights means knowing your limits. How much disrespect will you tolerate before it's time to escalate? For me, the repeated blocking of my driveway crossed the line from inconvenience into a violation of my personal space and peace. That's when I understood that assertive action was necessary, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Calling the tow truck wasn't just about reclaiming my driveway, it was about reclaiming control over my environment. It sent a clear message that I valued my rights and wouldn't allow them to be trampled. Sometimes action speaks louder than words, especially when others refuse to listen. But standing up isn't always easy. There's fear of confrontation, worry about creating tension, or even feelings of guilt. I wrestled with all of these emotions before making the call. What if he got mad? What if it caused neighborhood drama? Yet I knew that living with ongoing disrespect would cost me more peace and comfort. It's important to remember that standing up for yourself isn't about being aggressive or unreasonable. It's about setting healthy boundaries. It's about protecting what's yours and teaching others to respect those limits. Everyone deserves to feel safe and valued in their own home. If you find yourself facing similar challenges, whether it's a neighbor, coworker, or family member, start with calm communication. Give people the chance to understand and change. But if that fails, don't hesitate to take action that protects your well-being. Remember, your rights matter, your peace matters. And sometimes the courage to act is exactly what's needed to make that clear to others and to yourself. Reclaiming my driveway wasn't just about getting a car towed. It was about reclaiming my peace of mind, my dignity, and my right to feel comfortable in my own home. For too long, I allowed my neighbor's arrogance to disrupt my daily life, to make me feel powerless in a place that's supposed to be my sanctuary. But that night, when I finally called the tow truck, everything changed. It reminded me, and it might remind you, that sometimes standing up for yourself is the bravest thing you can do. It's not about confrontation for the sake of conflict, but about protecting your boundaries and demanding respect. Our homes are more than just physical spaces. They're where we recharge, where we find comfort. And no one should ever make you feel like that space isn't yours. The look on my neighbor's face, the confusion and embarrassment when he realized his car was gone, it was proof that sometimes consequences are the only language some people understand. More importantly, it showed me that I had the power to make change, to take back control when things felt out of hand. If you're watching this and feeling frustrated by someone else's disregard for your boundaries, remember, you don't have to accept it. You deserve respect, peace, and the right to reclaim your space. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've faced similar struggles or found your own way to stand firm, please subscribe and share your experience. Together, we can learn to protect what's ours and live with confidence and grace.